And now for our next news special report.
Tonight we're diving into a story that's shaking the nation. CNN's Jake Tapper's recent face-off with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg over the East Palestine train disaster. Nearly a year has passed since the toxic derailment in Ohio, and the Biden administration's response or lack thereof has raised serious questions. Why hasn't there been a major disaster declaration? Why is the federal government seemingly turning a blind eye to the suffering of East Palestine residents? We'll be unraveling these questions, exposing the hard truths behind the headlines. It's not just a story about a train wreck, it's a tale of ignored cries for help, a government's questionable priorities, and the stark contrast to the decisive action that we've seen in the past. So stay with us for this explosive report, because you don't want to miss my final thought on why this matters to every American. Now, folks, before we jump into our explosive report, let's talk about staying warm in tough times. Just like the residents of East Palestine facing a cold response from the government, we too face the chill of rising heating costs. Experts have warned us. Heating bills are skyrocketing, with costs soaring over 17%. It reminds me of the cold shoulder that East Palestine got. But here is a solution. It is an incredible portable heater. It is like the quick, efficient response we wish the government provided. Compact and powerful, it's saving me a fortune, keep my home cozy without lining the pockets of the big utility companies. Grab yours now at getwarmnow.com for a whopping 55% off. Don't let this offer or your comfort slip away. That's getwarmnow.com. Now, tonight's report zeroes in on a critical issue that's been simmering under the radar, the East Palestine train disaster in Ohio, and how the Biden administration has handled it. Almost a year after this toxic derailment, CNN's Jake Tapper took Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to task in a way that highlighted the increasing frustration and desperation of the affected residents. Tapper's interview with Buttigieg wasn't just an ordinary conversation. It served as a moment of reckoning for the Biden administration's approach to the East Palestine disaster. And known for his questioning, Tapper didn't shy away from the tough ones. He demanded to know why the government had declared a major disaster to help the people in East Palestine, and Buttigieg's response or lack thereof spoke volumes. Watch this.
It's not just Congress, right? Because some residents of East Palestine, plus Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, are calling on FEMA to approve Governor DeWine's disaster declaration. That would unlock additional resources from the federal government, possibly providing ongoing health screenings and benefits to residents. But the Biden administration refuses to do that. They say a disaster declaration does not apply because it's not a natural disaster. They say Norfolk Southern is responsible. So is that disaster declaration still just off the table for these residents who are clearly suffering?
Look, leaving aside, I don't know all the legalities of the emergency management process. I do know what we can do as a department to make sure that railroads are safer, and we've been taking action on everything from focused inspection of railroads to making sure that there's better hazardous material related regulation to just investing in better railroad infrastructure.
Wow, he can't speak to national emergencies. So Tapper's question really transcends mere journalistic inquiry. He was voicing the palpable anger and confusion of many Americans. The Biden administration's refusal to issue a major disaster declaration, pinning responsibility instead on Norfolk Southern, offering little solace to those enduring hardship in Ohio. Another major issue is President Biden's absence from East Palestine. Tapper confronted Buttigieg about why Biden hadn't visited the disaster site, echoing a question that many have asked. Watch this.
Speaking of the president, he still has not visited East Palestine, Ohio. I don't know why that is. That doesn't seem to make much sense to me. But if Congress needs pressure to get this done, why wouldn't he just go to East Palestine and use the bully pulpit the way that, Harry S. Truman would do, try to shame Congress into passing that? Why is that not even like an idea that the White House would contemplate?
I don't have any updates on the scheduling front for the White House, but what I can tell you is it shouldn't take anything more than we've already seen happen for Congress to act.
Unbelievable. This absence goes beyond a simple matter of scheduling. It symbolizes the administration's seeming indifference. When leaders fail to be present, both in person and in action, it sends a stark message. For the people of East Palestine, this message is one of neglect, resonating deeply and painfully. The federal government's reluctance to take decisive action is glaringly apparent. Despite calls from the Ohio governor, Mike DeWine, and Senator Sherrod Brown for a major disaster declaration, the administration remains unmoved. This inaction has tangible consequences. Residents wait for aid, for recognition, for action, but what they receive instead is red tape and passing the buck. In defense, Buttigieg highlighted the Department of Transportation's efforts to enhance railroad safety, but these measures are more reactive than proactive. Regulations and inspections are essential but don't provide immediate relief to those affected by the disaster. Now, the situation underscores the need for leadership in the mold of Donald Trump. Known for his bold and decisive actions, Trump's approach to such a crisis likely would have been starkly different. The contrast between the current administration's handling and what many believe Trump would have done is striking. In times of crisis, people look to their leaders for prompt and effective action, something sorely lacking in the current scenario. The train disaster in East Palestine transcends local concerns. It's a national safety issue. It underscores the necessity for more stringent rail safety legislation. This is a call for bipartisan action, not just for political gains, but for the safeguarding of lives and livelihoods. The impact on East Palestine's residents is profound. They face health risks, environmental concerns, and a feeling of being forsaken by their own government. This disaster has upended lives and livelihoods, leaving a community in distress. And the Biden administration's response to other disasters throws sharp relief in the inconsistency in its approach to East Palestine. This discrepancy in response isn't just a policy matter, it's an issue of fairness and justice. In closing out this segment, I urge you, if you found value in this report, tap subscribe. The East Palestine story isn't just a news item, it's a stark reflection of our government's priorities and actions. And now, it's time for my final thought. In closing, let's cut to the heart of the matter. The East Palestine train disaster isn't just about a toxic spill, it's a glaring example of government negligence. Under Buttigieg's watch and the Biden administration, we've witnessed a disturbing trend of inaction and indifference. This isn't leadership, it's a failure to serve the American people. The residents of East Palestine need a champion, a government that would swiftly come to their aid, but all they receive was a cold shoulder. Contrast this with the decisive action we've come to expect from leaders like Trump. He understood the value of prompt response in crisis, putting Americans first, not politics. Now, this disaster under Trump would have likely seen a very different, more proactive approach. And it's high time the current administration learns that leadership is about action and not just words. The people of East Palestine, and indeed all Americans, deserve nothing less. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.